Okay, so before we begin the sermon, as usual, let us chant the Namaskara 3 times to pay homage to the Perfect One, our Lord Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Permission from the Noble Triple Gem. Right. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. And as usual, lots of familiar faces. And as Mr. Sanjay said, if you are in a position to turn your cameras on, please do so, because it will make this a lot more easier for me and a lot more beneficial for all of you. Okay. So early today, so as you all know, in our monastery, we have various programs going on at the same time, and we have our rehabilitation center is called Noble Friends, and every Wednesday, just before this sermon, I have the privilege of going down there and having a chat with the people there, with the guys there. And so this week we had some newcomers, and so they are there for, so it's as well as being a rehabilitation center, it's also where when new Anagarikas come, i.e. by Anagarika I meant, for anyone who's not familiar with the term, someone who is training to be a monk. So I have the privilege of going and doing a sermon for them. So when someone comes to be a monk, what they do is they spend a month there, and then they join the Anagarika program proper, so that to kind of ease their way into the program. So early today, I went to Noble Friends, and as I do every Wednesday, and one of the questions that I was asked was that they say, one of them said, some days on some days I feel really motivated. I feel really upbeat, inspired, but some days I feel the opposite. So he's fairly new to the monastery, and it's a fair question, I thought, because we all feel that way sometimes, don't we? And I certainly feel that way sometimes. And I told him it's quite normal to feel that way, because none of us are enlightened. So because of that, we still feel that, okay, you might, for example, I mean, I used to feel this a lot, especially as a lay person, because on a Sunday night, that's when it would start. Because on Sunday, well, it doesn't have to be Sunday night, but like straight after lunch or so on Sunday, you're thinking about the next week. You start planning for the week ahead. You start doing the meal prep and ironing the shirts, and then getting everything ready and doing all of those things, and you're thinking about the next week. Like the Monday is the worst. You're thinking about the meetings and all those kind of stuff, and usually Sunday night we go to sleep feeling the worst in a way. It's probably the worst sleep that you have during the week. So as lay people, we tend to have these days where we feel great, and some days where we feel a bit down and a little bit less motivated. So lacking in motivation was really his key concern, and I told him that the way our life is especially if it's because all of us are in the same journey. That's why I'm sharing this with you. The journey of trying to understand the truth about the world, trying to understand what's actually going on. And in this journey, we do have these ups and downs. And what I said to him was that when it comes to motivation, the reason why we lack motivation at times is because, firstly, we have to accept that we have these moments where we're not inspired, we're not motivated. So the first thing is to accept it. Is we all feel so when we feel jati, or when we feel the sense of self or separation, the first thing we have to do is to feel the first thing we need to do is to accept we feel this way. So first we need to accept that we have these kind of days. And I told him, especially at the beginning, that's how it is. It's like when you drop a ball, it's a bit like when you drop a ball from a certain height. The first bounce is the highest. And then the subsequent bounce, the second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. As the number of bounces increase, the height becomes less and less. Height of the bounce gets less and less and less. And eventually it'll come to a stop. And then it will be, so if you were to plot a graph of the ball being dropped, or if you were to trace its movement, eventually it'll come to a point where it's still, it's a straight line. I said to him, that's our journey towards Nibbana. It's like that. Initially, there'll be huge drops, huge ups, huge downs. And as we go on, as our understanding gets solidified, these moments of where we lack motivation, these becomes less and less and less and less. And eventually it'll, when you eventually reach your destination, i.e. when you become enlightened, then it'll be, you'll be at a neutral kind of state. So it's from there onwards, it's very stable. But as you progress, as you understand this more and more, it will become very stable. So what I said to him was that accept that you have these type of days, and when you have the days where you're really motivated and inspired and stuff, those days really work hard. On those days, don't relax, don't slack. So I'm sure we all have these type of days, and especially when we visit the UK and when we have these programs going on, all of us are, especially when we visit your towns, your cities, you're really motivated. And as once we leave after a few days, and maybe the first day, it becomes, the motivation becomes a little bit less, and then as it continues, it becomes less and less and less. And sometimes now probably it's been about 2 months since we left, and it's probably maybe at a low point. So the reason why this happens is because, first thing is to accept it. We need to accept first that, okay, this is how we feel. So because we know that this is going to happen, what we need to do is, when we are feeling really upbeat and motivated, in those times, we have to make sure we contemplate and do lots of merits. All of you do lots of merits anyway, but contemplation is something that we often like. Even us, when we get really busy in the monastery with various programs and merit works and stuff like that, even we tend to forget that. We tend to forget to contemplate, to stay switched on, because being busy is, because there's nothing wrong with being busy. Don't get me wrong. It's perfectly fine to be busy. It's in a way, it's better to be busy than not busy. Or either one is okay. Whether you're busy or whether you have a very relaxed lifestyle, either way, it's okay. The issue with being busy is that if we are not used to, if you're not advanced practitioners, it's very difficult to say switched on, because during a busy time period. Why? Because you are constantly switching from one task to another, then to another one. And when this constant switching happens, the mind, because the thing is this, a mind with ignorance, or our minds bears this idea that there's a difference in the world. So the mind, because the mind has this idea, it's constantly looking for a change, a difference. And because of that, it kind of, the mind is living in the future. You probably notice this with yourselves. You're probably thinking about the next thing. I mean, when you start a new task, so for example, when you start listening to this talk, maybe the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, or maybe the first half of the sermon, we were excited and stuff. But towards the end of the sermon, or straight after the halfway point, you're probably thinking about the next thing. You're probably thinking about your next task, dinner, or going to sleep, or whatever it is you have planned for the rest of the night. That's what you're thinking about. So what that does is that now the mind is living in the future. That's why if you are, or if someone is planning on attaining Nibbana in the future, or if someone is hoping to attain Nibbana, that person will never attain Nibbana, because the danger with with hoping is that, like, don't take it the wrong way. So, like, don't take it the wrong way. Take it with an open mind. So, the issue with the hope is that it's kind of vague in a way, or it's like you're saying, okay, I wish to become enlightened. It means someday it'll happen. In a way, you're kind of postponing it. You're not taking any action right now. It's like the saying, tomorrow never comes. It's kind of like that. When you keep postponing things, oh, it'll never get done. I remember when there were certain points in my life where, especially during the Corona times, straight after Corona, because during Corona times, well, the gyms were shut, and then there wasn't much happening. So I, like most of us, I was at home. I was going to work because we had to work, because I was working for the NHS, and we were considered as frontline staff. So I had to go, even though it was COVID, we had to go. We were wearing like 2 masks at one point, because that's when remote working wasn't quite up and running, and it was like a new concept, and pretty much everyone came to IT with their laptops, wanted to set up Microsoft Teams. So we had to be present to get that sorted. So during that time, that was my day. Home, work, home, not homework, home to work, work to home. And what happened was that I gained a bit of weight. And now towards the end of Corona, or after Corona, gym started opening up. Now I want to go back to the gym, but I was saying, okay, I'll go tomorrow. It's okay. Um, and then I think during the Corona time, I started set up a home gym as well. And was my attitude is that, okay, I have a gym at home, so I don't have to, because I got a treadmill and I got all the basic stuff, a bench press and stuff like that. So I thought that, okay, I'll go tomorrow. I mean, in the morning I would say, okay, I don't need to work out now. Let me go to work, and then I'll come back, and in the afternoon I'll work out, or in the evening I'll work out. And then when I came back from work, I'm thinking, was at work. I'm a bit tired now. Let me do it in the night. And then at night you feel, uh, you know what, it's night. I might as well do it. I'm gonna wake up early in the morning, an hour early, and then I'm gonna do some work. I'm gonna do a little workout and then go to work. And then this just kept on going, and it got postponed and postponed, and eventually it never got done. And like days were going, and I was just getting fatter and fatter. And so it's like, because why I was hoping, I'm hoping to go to the gym. That's the difference between hope and determination. That's why we say make a determination that you're going to attain Nibbana. Because when you take a determination, you are taking some action now. It's like, because when we say hope, we say, I wish to become enlightened. But when we make determination, I am going to be enlightened. I am going to understand the truth. I am going to find my salvation. So see, this is the difference. So that's why if you're someone who's hoping to attain Nibbana, I'd say shift your mentality, shift your mindset to wanting to attain Nibbana, understand the truth now. Start making determinations, not hopes. Because when you hope, things will never get done. But if you make a determination, you are taking an action right now. As in, it puts you into that kind of mindset. And that mindset will lead you to take some action towards it immediately. So I said to him, on days that you don't feel as motivated, on the days that you are really motivated, make sure you do lots of merits, and make sure you do it with Nibbana in your mind, with your freedom, with your salvation in your mind. And make sure you contemplate. Because if there's a high, there's a low coming. Obviously, we're all very new to this, so this is normal. So when the high periods are there, we have to contemplate. Like when you're riding that wave, like don't rest. It's a mistake that a lot of us make. I used to make that when I was an anagarika as well. During those, because the thing is, when we are not motivated, we can't contemplate. Contemplation only happens when we're really inspired and motivated, when the mind is feeling pleasant and happy. So when we are in such mindset, we need to make the most out of it. So that's what I said to him. So I said to him, make sure you contemplate, and make sure you work your socks off for the sasana. And then these laws will be a higher law. Like, we say in trading and then the statistics, we have highs and lows, and these lows will be higher lows, because that's what we need to do. And so during that session, another question that I got was that I'm struggling to apply the Dhamma. I'm struggling to sometimes. So there was a new. I mean, they were all new, but there was someone who was only there who came 2 days ago, and he said, I hear the Dhamma, I see what you're saying, but like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I know there's something in this, but I don't really get it. So what should I do? So again, what I said to both of them is that the Buddha said, Kanti paramang tapotitikka. Kanti means be patient. Exercise patience, and then apply the Dhamma. Then application will happen. Because when we exercise, because when we are forced with a problem, when we are patient, then it will be a lot easier to deal with the problem. So I said to him, don't worry about not understanding Dhamma. It's okay. Firstly, because the reason why we don't get it is because our mind isn't used to receiving the Dhamma, or our mind isn't ready to receive the Dhamma, to understand it. because Guru Thero said something interesting to myself and Mahinda Thero before we left for the UK, I believe. So he said to us when we went to worship him, he said to us, people who are living in the monastery, or people who made their lives, who dedicated their life to the sasana, to who for him Nibbana is everything, and this is everything. Even though some could be leading lay lives, even though it doesn't matter if you're lay or if you're ordained, as long as your sole purpose of life is to attain Nibbana, then and he was reporting to the people in the monastery because that was the kind of the background. So basically, anyone whose mentality is to attain Nibbana, let's say, I mean, all of us here are, none of us here are old, to be fair. We all we're all young. So let's say all of us will live till about, let's say, 80, for example. It could be, let's say 80. So let's say we have another 40 years, 30 years, whatever, right? If you dedicate all of that time to pursue this goal, you might be able to achieve that target in this life. Even if you don't achieve that target in this life, because that's the environment, because that's what you were mostly concentrating on, in your next life, you will be born in a similar environment. So you'll get it done in the next time. If not the next time, the time after, but it won't go on for too long, because it's like you're training to learn. It's like when we learn a new skill, day one is the hardest. The day two becomes the second hardest day. And it becomes easier and easier and easier. It's a bit like, imagine you have your floor in your house. It's hard, isn't it? It's probably tiled, or it probably has a wooden finish. So it's hard at the moment, and nothing will, if you want to plant something, nothing will happen. You won't be able to plant anything, because that surface isn't conducive to a seed, to plant something. So initially what you have to do is, I mean, I'm not saying you should plant anything in your house. I'm just saying, using that as an example. Imagine it's a hard floor or hard ground. Firstly, you have to water it and make it softer. Once you make it softer, then you can plant the seed, and that seed will turn into a sapling, and then to a great tree one day. So initially, the first thing you have to do is to create a fertile ground. So that's why, because though we might be listening to this Dhamma for a long time, and though a lot of us have been practicing this for a long time, I think what we should still have the mindset that we are still new to this. The only reason why I say that is because then we concentrate on the basics. Because like doing merits, like then we are really concentrating on creating that fertile ground, fertile soil. Then it will become very easy for us to understand these, because every week, myself, Mahinda Thero, and other Theros that come and do these sermons, what we're doing is we are throwing seeds. If the environment over there is the right one, if it's ready, if it's right, if it's prime, then that seed or those seeds will be planted. If not, then it might not. So that's why patience is the most important thing. Let's be patient, and let's create the fertile ground. When we create the fertile ground, when we are ready, when the ground is ready, then seeds are constantly being thrown, and some of those will be planted. Some of those will become great trees. they will start growing. So growth will happen once the environment is ready. So that is what I said to them. I said to them, be patient, just work your socks off for this asana. Don't worry about understanding the Dhamma now. Like don't chase it too much. Let's be ready, because when you're ready, it will come to you. Because that's what happened with Siddhartha Gautama. The thing is, Buddhaness or the Buddhahood was always ready. And the truth was always there. The reason why he didn't become the Buddha earlier was because he wasn't ready. That's the reason. The reason, let's say, the reason we are not enlightened yet, or the reason in his case he hasn't understood the Dhamma yet, or we all feel like, because even I feel like when Guru Thero says certain things, or when Mahinda or some of the senior monks say certain things, I don't get it. And it's like, for them it's so obvious, it's so simple, and I often get frustrated with this. It's like, why don't I get this? They say it's something so that point, that particular concept or that point, is something dead simple. That's what they say, but I don't get it. So I become really frustrated. And I realized, and they told me, oh, don't worry about it. It's because you're not ready to understand it. The environment isn't quite right. So it's okay. Practice what you know and keep creating that environment. Keep doing the merits, and eventually you'll get it. So it's not because. So it's only so the reason is issue is with me. So Siddhartha Gautama wasn't ready. Buddhahood was ready. Like, if you're ready, the Buddhahood will come to you. But it's the reason why it hasn't come yet is because we are not ready. So that's what Siddhartha Gautama has realized. That's what he realized at the root of the Asatha Bo tree. When he was meditating, when he was trying hard to understand it, that's what he realized. He realized, okay, I need to be ready. So that's why the 10 paramis, the 10 things we need to do to attain, to understand this truth. These are the things that we need to concentrate on. Like dana, which is offering. So that is the first thing that we start with. So offering. I know all of you do these things, but what I say is, like, let's keep on doing these things. Let's keep on doing the merits, because then the truth will come to you. It might not even have to be from us. It might just come to you if you're ready. So, because that's why sometimes when you try to contemplate some of the bits that you don't understand, like, you get some knowledge, it feels like you received it from the universe, and all those bits that are unclear, those things become clearer and clearer, and then those missing pieces of the puzzles come together, and then you start to see the entire image, start to see the whole picture. So that is what I said to them. And don't have an urgency to attain nibbana. Like, I'd say, let's relax, let's chill, and 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 let's because attaining nibbana is an effect. Understanding the truth is an effect. We can't so for an effect to happen, there has to be causes have to align. So let's not worry about the effect. Let's try to align the causes. Let's line up the causes, or line the causes up. When they're lined up in the way that they're meant to, then you will start to understand this Dhamma. So this was my advice to them, and I thought I should share this with you, because I think it's useful to all of us. So that's the thing. When you are going through those high moments, when you are at those peaks, really contemplate and really like try to apply the Dhamma. Try to apply these concepts that you've been learning into your daily life. Then when you are going through a low time, because a low will come eventually, then you're ready. Then the low is not going to be so that low will be a higher low. It won't be a lower low. So that's what we need to be. So we have to be very diligent, very smart, and we have to like we have to like stay on the ball. We can't drop the ball, because the moment we do, then we go back, then we go way back in our progress. So as I said, that's the thing. So be really patient. So 𝗂𝗲𝗃 𝗵𝗃. Be patient first, practice patience, and then tapa means then you can get rid of the defilements. So this is, I feel like this is valuable advice to all of us, not just to those guys. So let's keep this in mind and practice these concepts and try to understand these concepts. Last week during the talk, Mahinda Thero explained to us. He said to us that use this time as a time to contemplate, didn't he? He said use this time to contemplate the Dhamma. He said, and one of the guys there, one of the guys there said that the reason why he was struggling to understand Dhamma is because he was like, his idea was full of a lot of other stuff that he heard from other sources. He probably listened. He said he listened to other preachers, and those things are in his mind. Therefore, because of that, when they were hearing what we say, those things kind of those preconceived ideas, the previous ideas that were in his mind, kind of blocked what was coming from him. So these are all issues that we face, and that's why the key thing is to be patient. When we're patient and when we dedicate ourselves to this asana. So when I was speaking to them, so thanks to their merits and thanks to your merits, this I was reminded of this. The reason why we say to do merits is because of this. I mean, out of many reasons, this is also one of them. When we work with someone, we start to learn about them, don't we? We start to learn the way they work. Are they fast? Are they slow? Do they plan ahead, or do they just think about? Are they in a are they long-term thinkers or short-term thinkers? Are they cool under pressure, or are they like you start to learn about them, don't we? And the longer we work with them, or him or her with them, we start to learn more and more and more, and eventually you'll know pretty much everything about them. Then okay, now he's really happy, now she's really stressed. So you can read them like a book after a while. So basically, the longer you work with someone, you get to know about them. Now, similarly, when we do merits, so I was saying to those guys, so one of their projects at the moment is that they're making columns, these like columns made out of concrete, cement and water and these small pebbles, stones type stuff. So it's like it's a mixture of that. They're making columns, and these columns are used as stabilizers, or they're used to bear weight when we build buildings. So if there are folk who's in the construction field or engineering side of things, you kind of know what I mean. So these columns are used to maintain the structural integrity of that building. So, because in our monastery, we're building lots of buildings, and so they need lots of columns. So these guys are building these columns, and so that is one of their projects. So I said to them, I asked them, do you know who you are building these for? Do you guys even know who's going to come and use those buildings once they're built? So when we come visit your part of the world, you help organize events. Some of you bring food, some of you do the decoration, some of you, arranges transport, and then you do. Do you guys even know who's going to be coming to the event? I mean, some events we have registration, so we can have like a fair idea. But I mean, generally, or most of the time, we don't even know who's going to come to the sermons, who's going to attend our programs. But we still put the hard yards in. We still do all the prep work and then everything that is necessary for that event to happen. Why do we do this? Because we're not gaining anything out of that. I mean, if anything, you're even getting to hear the sermon. Like if you are busy with getting the refreshments ready, and if you're dealing with the cameras, or if you're taking videos, or if you're busy with certain tasks during that event, then you're not even you're not even getting a chance to listen to the sermon. So you're not gaining in a way, right? But we still do it because why? Because we want to give, because we know that when we give, we're not doing what we want. We're not doing what we want. We are doing what everybody else needs. We are not worrying about our wants. We are worrying about other people's needs. Because of this, in other words, the reason why we feel a sense of self is because of a wrong idea. Because we've been told that there's a difference in the world, and because we look at the world in that perspective, we when we see a difference, we think the difference is really there. Because when you look at your laptop and your phone, you feel like these are two completely different things. Laptop, it's its own thing. The phone, it's its own thing. This is how we feel. But ultimately, laptop is a collection of electrons, neutrons, protons. Phone is a collection of electrons, neutrons, protons. You are also a collection of electrons, neutrons, protons. But you feel like this is me, right? And phone is the phone. Laptop is a laptop, which is a different thing. And phone is a different thing. I am someone who's different, and these belong to me. I mean, if we feel like our body belongs to us, what we are saying is we own the electrons, neutrons, protons that help create this body. So if you're claiming an ownership of electrons, neutrons, protons, ones that are here, I mean, then electron is everywhere, protons are everywhere, neutrons are everywhere. So if you're claiming ownership to electrons, neutrons, protons, if you're claiming ownership to what's here, then it's like you're claiming ownership to all the electrons, neutrons, protons. I mean, but nobody owns them. Because if you own them, they wouldn't be anywhere else unless you lend it, I suppose, or unless you let them pay you and then take it. But that's not how it works. These belong to everybody. So because we perceive, so yes, we don't get me wrong, when the different combinations, so the energy that is there, which forms the image of a laptop in our mind, when that combination is different to the combination of the phone, So the combination of energy that's there to create the experience of a laptop in our mind, that is different to so the experience of a laptop is different to the experience of a phone. Why? Because the aggregation of energy is different. Because there's a difference in the aggregation, that's why we experience a different experience. So laptop looks different to the phone because laptop is bigger, phone is smaller. They have bigger screens. Sorry, laptop has a bigger screen, phone has a slightly smaller screen. But we perceive that difference because we see color. But because we perceive color, but we know that color is something that's created in the mind, not in the object. So when we remove color, then they are both the same. So basically, there's no difference between the laptop and the phone. But because we're looking at the world from the wrong perspective, we feel like, don't get me wrong, there's a perceived difference, but that difference is purely a perception. Or they look different, but they're not really different. So because of this, that's why we feel like, everything is different. So in other words, we are kind of going against nature because now we feel like we are our own thing. Therefore, I am against nature. Not against nature, but like, I'm not saying like we actively thinking that, but that's why we always think about me and my things first, my people, my family, my people first, and then we think about others. That's why we feel like, if you are, I don't know, if you're Sri Lankan or if you're English, like us first and then everybody else kind of thing. So in other words, what you're doing is you're kind of going against nature when you think like that. But when you do merits, you're not doing, because this is the whole reason for mental suffering, is because of that idea that there's a difference. Now you feel like you are different to everybody else. And because of that, now you are kind of going against nature. And when you go against nature, then what's going to come to you is more pain, is more suffering, mental suffering I'm talking about, right? Now, when you do merits, what you're doing is that instead of going against nature, you're working with nature, or you're working for nature. You're working for nature, which means when you work with nature, you get to learn about nature. Oh, you have to. Because when we work with someone, whether we like it or not, we start noticing certain things about them. We start to understand the way they work. We start to understand the kind of person they are. So now when we work with nature, when we do things for everybody else, when we're not thinking about ourselves, what we're doing is we're working for nature. And because then that way we're kind of disregarding, we are putting to a side our ways, our preferences. Because so far, I mean, most of the time, we do things our way. If it's my way or no way, right? And because of this, that's why we suffer, because we have a preference, we have a way, and if things don't go our way, then there's a conflict. If things go our way, if things do go our way, then it's a reduction of the pressure of trying to maintain a way, pressure of trying to, or the weight of expectations of something happening the way I want. So now the pressure, so when something does go away, the pressure simply drops. That's it. But it's not happiness because you're still trying to maintain a way. So when you're doing merits, what you're doing is you're going against that. That's why the name for someone ordaining in Sinhala is 𝗕𝗵𝗰𝗍. The word 𝗕𝗵𝗰 means you are getting rid of your ways. Vidhi 𝗵𝗻𝗁. Vidhi means ways or preferences. 𝗵𝗻 means getting rid of. So that's why becoming ordained means you are getting rid of your, or you made your life's ambition to get rid of these ways and these preferences. I mean, don't get me wrong, conventionally there are ways of doing things, right ways and wrong ways. I'm saying, I mean, I'm not saying don't obey them and stuff like that. I mean, if that's the convention, respect the convention, do things in certain circumstances. Like, for example, like in most, so like in the UK, in the English culture, and in Sri Lankan culture, when we talk, we're not meant to, talk with our mouth full. When we are chewing, we're not meant to talk. After you chew and swallow the food, then you can talk. And like, or you're not meant to make those noises when you eat, those loud noises that you tend to make, especially if your mouth's open while you're chewing. Like that is not something that, it's not cool in our cultures. But if you're in Japan, they find that a compliment. When you like, when you eat, if you're making like a that kind of noise, Japanese, they love it because that means the food is delicious and you're enjoying the food. But if you were to do it in the UK or in Sri Lanka, then people think you're disgusting. You're eating like a pig. So if you're in Japan, do it that way. It's perfectly fine because you have to respect the convention. Otherwise, you look odd, and then you face more problems, and then you face a lot of problems, and you become the odd one out, and then it's not a pleasant experience. So, but when you are in the UK, then you adapt to that kind of a style of eating. So I'm not saying abandon convention. I'm saying respect the convention, but in your mind, we need to understand that neither is right or neither is wrong. There's no such thing as right or wrong. The problem arises if we were to believe, the problem arises if we were to have a preferred way of, in that case, eating. That's what brings about the problem. So now, going back to our main point, when you do merits, what you're doing is you are getting rid of your ways, you're parking them to a side, and you are helping others. When you help others, what you're doing is you're helping nature, because like I mentioned before, there's no difference between us. So now, when you work with nature, when you work for nature, when you're working with nature, you will get to learn about nature, about how it works. That's why now, when I'm in the monastery, which is not that often, what I do is I try to get involved in as many things as I can. I try to help out. By that I mean I try to help out anyone and everyone that I can. So lots of merit works. Try to do lots of sermons. If someone is not able to do a sermon, I say to them, okay, don't worry, I'll do it. So I try to get involved, and basically I'm not having any. I'm trying to have as zero free time in my timetable as possible, because I wanna, like, I wanna dedicate myself to the fullest to the dispensation of these teachings, of this, to disseminate this message of peace and love and kindness and compassion. So I want to help spread this wisdom. So because of that, I try to keep myself as busy as possible. And what I said to those guys was that now, even when I'm really busy, I'm not saying this is happening 100% of the time, but more often than not, a lot more than it used to. Now the mind automatically switches on to contemplation mode. Contemplation happens like it's not something I'm actively doing. I'm not trying to contemplate, it just happens. Or someone says something which triggers contemplation. So I was kind of thinking about this, and when I was speaking to those guys, because of their merits, because they work very hard, like every day they do merit work. So they're very meritorious. They're a meritorious bunch as well, much like you guys. I began to realize why that happens. Because when you work for nature, in other words, when you work for the truth, you will get to understand about the truth. You will get to understand it. That's why so when we worship, so the the Buddhists, or if you're really familiar with the Buddhist culture, you'll know what I'm talking about. So when we have something called a Buddha Puja, where we make offerings to the Buddha, and in the Buddha Puja we chant the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. So 9 qualities of the Buddha, I think. So altogether 24 qualities are mentioned, and it goes like this. So the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha. Sangha is a community of monks and nuns and devotees who follow this path. So the last quality that is mentioned is Anuttaram Punya 𝗗𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗃. It's one of the last ones. That means make your mind, make that fertile ground, do lots of merits. Because when we do merits, that's why he says that. That's why the Buddha said that. You're working with the truth. And when you work with the truth, the longer you work with the truth, because you can't put a gender to the truth. So when you work, the longer you work with the truth, or the more you work with the truth, you will learn about it more and more and more, and eventually you will know everything about it. So that's why merits are very important, because the ways that we have our preferences, the issue with that is that, imagine, let's say, when you make a cuppa, you probably have a way to make it. Your favorite cuppa, your favorite cup of tea, you probably have some kind of way. So let's say, for example, I don't know, you like 2 sugars, or you don't prefer sugar because you're sweet enough, so you don't need any sugar. So either way, you have different preferences. So now let's say, so your preference is a tea with, let's say, bit of milk and let's say 2 sugars. Now there's someone else who prefers it without any sugar. So if they were to drink your cup of tea, they would say, oh, there's too much sugar in this. They wouldn't like it. But let's say there's someone who loves sugar even more than you do. So for them, the perfect cup of tea has three sugars. And when they have your tea, they'd say, ah, it's not enough sugar. I want more. So now the issue is this. If there is a perfect way, or a universally correct way of making a cup of tea, then other ways shouldn't exist, isn't it? So one of 2 things can happen. So if there is a preferred way, if there's a right way to make tea, like a universal truth, like cause and effect, right? If there is, or like anicca dukkha anatta, if there is a such truth when it comes to making a cup of tea, if there is such a way, then other methods, other preferred ways, sorry, not methods, other preferred ways, or other types of, other preferred ways shouldn't exist. So if 2 sugars is a universal truth, right, when it comes to tea, then tea without sugar shouldn't exist, or it wouldn't exist, sorry. Tea with lots of sugar, more than 2 spoonfuls, that shouldn't exist. That wouldn't exist. So either that's the truth, or so if there was a preferred way, other ways wouldn't exist. The fact that there are other ways, other preferences, means that there can't be a true way of making a cup of tea, isn't it? Can either be one of the two things. Either there's a perfect way, or there's no particular way to make it. Whichever way you make, it's okay. Even if you want to add salt and pepper, oh, fine, right? We can't say that's wrong. And I know some people, they like to add cinnamon and like, like masala tea, and there are lots of spices. So we can't say that's wrong, because Indians love it, and not just Indians, but there are a lot of people out there who loves it. So we can't say adding spice to tea is wrong, isn't it? Or adding too much sugar to it, or putting no sugar in it, we can't say that's wrong. So they're all right. There's nothing wrong with it. So what we have to realize there is that people have a conflict with that. People have a problem with these things, is because with everything, the cause for suffering is having a preference. But when we understand that there's no preference in the world, because you can look at anything, right? Since we're all staring at our laptops, the parts that are there, because what's really there is no laptop, what's really there are parts, isn't it? These parts, they have no idea, or they have no agenda to create a laptop. They don't even know they're gathered for this purpose. In other words, they have no purpose. We create the purpose and bring them together. That's the way the world works. The first noble truth is called 𝗂𝗏 Dukkha is falsely translated in I'm sure all the languages out there as suffering. It's not suffering. Dukkha means things happen when there's a necessity. If there's a need, things will come together. Energy comes together, because parts are energy, essentially. Comes together if there's a need. But energy themselves, energy itself, or energy has no necessity. Energy has no agenda. Energy is free. So energy just wants to be by itself, be by themselves. They don't want to gather and move about, move around and stuff like that. And it doesn't want to do any of that stuff. So meaning that energy has no preferred way. Any way is okay. So let's take, I'm guessing most of you have a cup of tea or a cup of water or something like that next to you, or a drink or something. If you were to take that liquid, if you were to pour that liquid, so when it's in a cup of tea, it took that shape. If you were to transfer it from that to a container of a different shape, if it had a preferred way, let's say the fact that it fitted onto your cup, that means it took that form, it took that shape, isn't it? If you fit it into it, that means it took that form. So now let's say that is its preferred way. Then if you were to transfer it to another container, let's say something that is smaller, then if water has a preferred way, which is the way, the cup way, let's say the shape of a cup, then if you were to transfer it to a different size container, then we wouldn't be able to fit it into that. Let's say we are transferring from a cup to, let's say, a beaker, we used it in science, in labs, beakers. So let's say, because it has a much narrower body. So let's say we're transferring the water from your cup to the beaker. Now, if the preferred way, if water had a preferred way, then it should maintain, even as we're pouring it into the beaker, it should maintain that shape. But does it maintain that shape? No, it fits into whichever the shape of the other container. So since we're talking about a beaker, it will take the shape of the beaker. Why? Because it has no preference. It's okay with either form or either shape. Doesn't have a preference. So now, if that's the same with water, it's the same with everything that's out there in nature, isn't it? That's the same with everything. It is. It has to be, isn't it? So when we are looking at water, in reality, there's a transference of energy. The water is your mind. So when you're looking at water, water is your mind. So if water has no preference, if water has no preferred way, that means your mind also has no preferred way, isn't it? It must be, because your mind is water at that point. So this is a deeper point. So see if you can grab this to understand this point. So when we're looking at water, let's say if I were to do that experiment here, when you're observing that experiment itself, that's happening in your mind. So water is your mind at that point. So if water has no preferred way, that means your mind also doesn't have a preferred way. But we have preferences because of the wrong idea. So when we understand this, when we understand and prove to ourselves that there's no preferred way, there are no preferences, then that will prevent suffering from happening. Because when the mind's under pressure, we have to accept, okay, mind's under pressure now. So at that point, it's very difficult to do something. But if we can be patient, and once we ride the storm and once it's gone, then we can start to contemplate this. Then when we apply these things that we talked about and some of the other Dhamma that then the mind will, so it will prevent this from happening the next time. I mean, when you fully understand it, suffering will never happen. So it's where we're trying to get at. So this Dhamma, this doctrine, this philosophy is a prevention method. It's a prevention technique. It's not a cure. And it's not something to manage the stress. Because if you have a disease, let's say there are 3 doctors. One will help you manage it, one will help you cure it, one will help you prevent it. I mean, ideally, right? You would go to the doctor, or you would go to that person who would help you prevent it from happening. Do you know what I mean? So that's what this does. I mean, it takes you to that prevention method. I mean, it will prevent it by doing the other things as well. Like initially, it will, the thing is, the Dhamma does all 3 things. That's the beauty of the Dhamma. Now that I come to think of it, right? The Dhamma does all 3 things. So if you're stressed, initially it will help you manage it, and then it'll, with your understanding, it'll cure it, and then eventually, as you keep practicing, it will prevent it from ever happening again. So this is the journey. So we have to, kind of, strap ourselves and do this, and prove these things to the mind over and over and over again. And the longer you prove it, or the longer you keep on proving this, then you don't have to worry about contemplation, because contemplation will happen automatically. The reason why contemplation doesn't happen automatically, or what we refer to as vidarshana, the reason why it doesn't happen is because we are not familiar with the Dhamma. and we haven't understood it. It's a bit like when you look at a laptop. When you see a laptop, okay, this is how we turn it on. We have to, and then this is what we can do with it. This is what we can't. All this knowledge comes to you like that. You don't have to force that knowledge to come to you. It just comes. Why? Because you've used a laptop your entire lives. But we haven't done that with the Dhamma, with this doctrine. We haven't practiced it enough. We haven't used it enough. That's why when we face, it doesn't have to be a problem, just even generally, that's why it doesn't come to us. That's why we have to force it, because we haven't understood it. We haven't used it enough. We're not familiar with it. So that's why I always try to always when you have some free time and you can think, if you don't have free time, try to make some free time because it's for your own benefit. And then reflect on these principles. Think about these things. And as we always say, have a small example, have a very simple example. And so I use purple. We can use a flame. And so glass of water, you add red and blue and you mix it, you see purple, but purple is not really there. What's really there are the three causes: water, red, and blue. Purple is created in your mind. But or technically speaking, purple is an illusion. It doesn't exist anywhere. It looks like purple, but it's not really purple. In other words, it's becoming purple, but it never becomes. So that's why when the mind is under stress, stress is also an illusion. It feels very real when we feel angry, when we feel upset. It's an illusion. It happens in the mind. Because let's say someone has a job interview tomorrow and you're stressed. But the job interview didn't bring you stress, because there are people who love job interviews. They don't mind it. Some people love it, some people don't mind it. So it didn't come from the interview. So stress came because, so stress wasn't something that came from the interview. It was something created in the mind. Because we feel like, oh, I have to go and do the interview. And then it's because of like weight of our expectations. So this is what you have to prove to the mind. So use a simple example and try to understand the truth. And then with that understanding, you can look at the world. You can look at, because what's really happening are the senses. So now when you look, when you see something, applied, am I looking at something or seeing happens? Because colors are created in my mind, causes come together, and then the perception. Therefore, color comes first, and then the object, or what looks like an object. So in other words, I am not doing anything. There's no doer behind it. It's just happening. Just a process. Process implies that there's no doer. So this is what we have to do. Like, I'm sure all of us can explain this. All of us know this, right? As a theory, but we have to apply it, because that's the difference. Because otherwise, I'm saying this to myself as well. Otherwise, you'll become a good preacher, but you won't have understood anything. So, give yourselves a chance to free yourselves. This is a golden opportunity that we have, because this might be, I don't know, maybe if we don't get the job done in this lifetime, we might have to wait for another 1,000 Buddhas to come before we get another chance, which is an extremely long time. It's basically, I don't know, infinitely long. So take this advice on board and start practicing. I am happy to conclude the sermon. So thank you all for joining, and may the Noble True Virgin bless you all. And keep up the good work. This is really good that we are into like over 30 sessions in now, and almost more than half a year has passed. So this is really good. and then let's keep doing this, and then that's it. Let's soldier on, and we can feel that Dham has made a positive change in our lives. Therefore, let's keep doing it. So, and not worry too much about attaining Nibbana and stuff like that too much. That will happen in due course. So let's trust the process. Let's trust our teachers, and let's keep our faith in them, and let's keep going. Okay. By the power of all the merits you gain throughout the entirety of samsara, may you all attain supreme bliss of Nibbana in this very life itself. And if there are any obstacles in your way of attaining Nibbana, may all of those go away. Bless you all. 𝗓𝗏